Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Brian with Simpleman Comics, and welcome to the weekly live stream. We are going, and today we're going to go over new releases for new comics that came out for Wednesday, January 30th. Also, the CBSIBOLO list. Everyone's familiar with the BOLO list by now, so we're going to recap that, see how the comics have been selling, even though it's new release day from yesterday, but see what's been hot so far. And before I get into that, let me introduce my co-host, and that is aka Jack DeMeo, aka Mr. Bolo. Tell him what's going on.
Hey everybody, what's going on, comic fam? As Brian said, I am Jack DeMeo, aka Mr. Bolo, and I am excited to be here again, back on our regularly scheduled day of Thursdays to talk about new comic book day.
All right, so before we get into the Bolo list, I do have something to bring up, and that is we actually we kind of got a sponsor, right? So we've been doing some giveaways. We got someone that wants to sponsor some of our giveaways. So this show, I will say, is officially brought to you by Slabbed Heroes. Nick Dortman, he runs slabbedheroes.com. As you can see on the screen there, website, he sells a lot of raw comics, but his big thing is he sells a lot of 9.8 slabs, and he sells them at prices that can't really be beat. He runs great deals on his site all the time. I actually did a video on his site as well, so you can check that out. For those watching the replay, I'll put a little card up over here in the corner. And but yeah, so Nick, he's gonna hook us up. We're gonna actually have Nick on this live stream here in a couple weeks. He's anxious to come on and talk about his business, but definitely big ups to him for he's gonna be doing slab giveaways for us. So definitely appreciate that. But what we're here to talk about is the BOLO list. And before we go into the BOLO list, I want to welcome people that are coming into the chat. We got Walt Parrish, we got Discovery Bay Comics, we got, let me scroll up here and just see who all we got in here. Roger Heller, Rantor Tim, a bunch of people that are always commenting on my videos. Color Me Comic, Beyond the Blast Doors. Like I always say, if you're a huge Star Wars fan, make sure you check out Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel. Ben C., Mr. CBSI himself. So we got the chat filling up, and I think you kind of had some type of announcement you wanted to say before we actually get into this list, huh?
Right. Well, we want to talk about a couple things. First off, an update on past giveaways. Mr. Ben C., the owner of CBSI, has shipped out our first giveaway, the Luisio Perillo Spawn variant. So that is on its way. Our giveaway from last week has been shipped out, so that is on its way. But this week, we're actually going to have two giveaways. So I definitely encourage everybody to listen to the end, watch to the end. The very first thing we're going to do is give away a book from last week's BOLO list, Blossom 666, the Robert Hack variant. Now, I will say this book is probably a 9.0 to a 9.2. You got to be careful with that Archie Comics web store shipping. Yeah. But we'll give that away today. We'll do a trivia question, as we always do on that one. But I'm also going to give away a special, we'll call it Mr. Bolo box, a little box of some Matina Spawn goodness that we'll give away in a little contest that we'll talk about at the end. So we definitely encourage everybody to stick around, check us out at the end, and we're going to give away some good comics.
Right, and I guess I'll be shamelessly plug my channel here a little bit, but one thing I started this past week was a weekly video called Tuber Tuesdays. So each Tuesday I'm going to highlight a YouTube channel that I enjoy watching, whether sometimes it's going to be smaller YouTube channels, or sometimes it's going to be bigger. Everyone's great in the comic community, and this past week I highlighted Discovery Bay Comics. If you guys aren't watching his channel, he does do a fantastic daily video, which more power to him because daily videos is freaking rough, but he always does what's on today, and basically a video highlighting everything comic related that's going to be on YouTube from a bunch of different YouTube channels, and everyone's fantastic on there. He does a fantastic job of that. So if you haven't, make sure you check him out. But what everyone's here for is the BOLO list, the new releases that came out. As we always do, we'll start with confirmed first appearances, and the first one you have on this list here is going to be the Spawn 293, right? And right. Let me get rid of that. So Spawn 293, yeah, first appearance, but there was also some additional buzz that we'll get into on this book here in a little bit, right?
Right. So we'll stay kind of on topic here this week, and we'll just talk about the first appearance. So Spawn is one of the longest running series as there is, longest running independent series. You're at 293 issues, and you don't see new characters introduced in the Spawn universe too often. And this week we got a new, presumably villain, Godsend, showing up, kind of a last page, splash page reveal. I did not get a chance to read this book yet. I have several copies pre-ordered. So I haven't gotten a chance to check it out yet. Don't know too much. Wouldn't want to spoil it anyway. But it definitely has Spawn fans talking. And aside from the error madness, people were already kind of talking about this book. And as a Spawn fan, I'm actually kind of bummed that the error situation overtook the news of the first appearance and any sort of hype that would go with that. But it's why cover A, which was on the BOLO list as a first appearance, is probably a stealth buy.
Right. And then, so are you an avid Spawn fan? I take it. I see you seem to read a lot of Spawn. I haven't read too much Spawn. I definitely have collected the Matina covers. I'm one of those crappy readers for Spawn. I don't really read. I just I collect the covers I like. But
when I first started collecting comics was right around the time as a kid Spawn #1 came out. So like I'm a child of Spawn and Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man run. So yeah, Spawn has a real special place in my heart. But as a kid, I didn't really read the comics as much because I could never get enough of a run to really read the stories. So I collected Spawn comics here and there. I had a lot of Spawn toys. I watched that Spawn cartoon as a kid because my father is one of those dads who, yeah, sure, go ahead, rent whatever you want. And so I watched the Spawn cartoon, the Spawn movie, so it kind of stuck with me. And as I've gotten back into comics, one of the things that I've enjoyed doing is actually getting to go back and read Spawn and kind of get almost reintroduced to Spawn altogether. And I've really kind of enjoyed it. People have knocked the character as a take on other characters, but I really enjoy the lineage that Todd has been able to put together in this many issues and this many years, and the future looks bright with the movie coming out.
So
I'm always pretty a little bullish on Spawn.
So let's say someone like me, and even people in the chat, if you guys are Spawn readers, and I'm a cover guy, but I'm like, man, I really want to start reading this. Would it be like start all the way from the beginning, or is there another jumping on point that I could pick up and start reading and kind of get the gist of what the Spawn book is about, besides John Leguizamo movie?
There may be a good jumping on point, but the truth is I don't know. Yeah. When I started, I just started at the beginning. And the origin story that you see in the beginning is very similar to what you see in the movie, what you see in the cartoon. So it'll be very familiar to people. And then as the story builds, they kind of build and add new characters, and you get introduced to more people within the universe. But I would definitely, best I can suggest would be to start back at the beginning. That's what I did, and that's what I've enjoyed doing. And my next one that I'm going to do the same with is G.I. Joe. And I think the same way. You just start at the beginning.
Yeah, there's definitely there already has been, but there's definitely going to be renewed interest when the movie comes out, I'm sure. And it can't be worse than the first movie, but anyhow. Moving on, the next on your list for first appearances, we had first appearances of Daughters of Liberty, and that was in Captain America #7, right?
Right. So there's definitely there was some hype and talk about this. Another kind of last page, splash page reveal. This is not a first appearance I'm real interested in long term. I think as this show, if you continue to watch from week to week, I think you'll hear me say this regularly. I'm not a big fan of teams. I think it's like wrestling factions. It's one thing if it's organic. If three guys come up together and they're a team, they're a faction, and you always see them as a faction, that's one thing. When it's three random guys put together as a group just because you don't have anything going on with them, it's a little different. And a lot of the times it seems like writers are throwing these teams together. And I get it because it's their opportunity to get to write characters who maybe they wouldn't otherwise get to write. But I don't know what the Daughters of Liberty's long-term potential is. Now, if it's a team that sticks long-term, Guardians of the Galaxy style, sure. There's a lot of characters in there that get people's attention. The female angle is obviously popular, but I don't see it being something that you'll see like a Daughters of Liberty book or anything like that.
So off comics, but you were talking about wrestling and factions. Are you a fan of New Day or no?
I am. I think New Day is one of the most fun things in WWE.
Right. So, real quick, out of these three covers, I like the Alex Ross the most, of course. I know you've been a fan of the Noto 80th variants, and that's actually the one doing a quick look over a day, right? They've been out a day. The Noto is actually selling the best right now, and it's averaging about $7 a piece.
Which doesn't really surprise me because you've got Venom and Deadpool and characters of that era,
Right.
which now you have a lot of us, getting into the, buying era, and we grew up on those characters, so that's kind of doesn't surprise me.
So, next on confirmed first appearances, you had Justice League Annual #1. What was the first appearance that came up in this issue?
Oh, you're gonna make me pronounce it, but is it Perpetua? Yeah, so this was a long teased character. People were hyped for this character, but it's going to be another character where I think the market's going to establish this as a first appearance. But I think there was some argument coming in. It's another one where I've read some of the story leading up to. I haven't read this issue yet, but annuals are interesting because they're printed lower, and DC pulls characters from so many different places and uses them later. And it really doesn't take long for DC characters to go from being created to being on, say, the small screen on TV. Just look at this week's tease of the Red Death on Flash. So, I definitely think this is one of those issues that's worth grabbing a few copies and stashing. I don't think you're going to see short-term gains, but I think you can definitely see long-term gains.
Right. So I read, I think, the first 3 issues of the new Captain America, and what's his name that's writing it? Ta-Nehisi Coates, right? Coates?
Yeah, Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yeah, you know me, I butcher names. But and I didn't stop because I didn't like reading it. It's just time of the day and stuff like that. But to go back to both cameras. But I've enjoyed it, but that was another one. It wasn't the writer that got me into reading it. It was actually the Alex Ross covers, just because I'm a huge Alex Ross fan. But so I'm interested to catch up on that and see where it goes. And then, freaking, it's been a day. But, next up on your first appearances is we have Old Lady Harley #4, right?
Right. So, yeah, this is a interesting one. You've got the first appearance of Old Man Aquaman. This is a story I haven't read yet. You were just talking about Captain America. I think what you kind of fell into with that series is what I've fallen into with a lot of series. So I've recently tried to switch over to reading more trades, which can cause problems in and of itself of buying a bunch of trades you haven't gotten to reading yet. But Old Lady Harley is a book that I'd really like to read. I'm going to wait till it's done and read the trade at the end. I don't know what the staying power of the characters are. Part of me wants to say that this is a short-term thing for the series, but look at Old Man Logan and look what's happened. And I'm sure people thought that at the time, when that story was released. So you don't want to rule anything out. But I think it's a fun story, and it'll be certainly a fun read.
Right, and what's the? I forget the Harley issue, but I had the first appearance of Old Lady Harley, and that shot up like when Old Lady Harley #1 came out. Then it shot up to like, I forget what issue it was. I want to say like 30.
42?
40, yeah. But that one shot up to like a $20 book for like 2 weeks. I mean, people were going nuts over it. And of course,
Right.
I found it at Third Eye for cover, but me being lazy, by the time I was like, oh yeah, I'll list this, it had dropped back down again. But I know Dan Piercy, who does the reading pile article on comicbookinvest.com, he enjoys this book, and it's always in his article there. Next up, we had another first appearance in another DC book, right? And that was the Terrifics. Terrifics
Correct.
#12.
12, yeah. So here you have the Dreadfuls. So you have another team. You can basically copy and paste most of what I said about Daughters of Liberty here. The one difference I will say is the awesome Beatles cover homage you have here. I like homages. I think they're low hanging fruit. All you have to do is find, the right fan. Where speculators can find profits is when books become popular to two different subsets of collectors. So here you would have the first appearance, the DC Comics collectors, somebody trying to put a Terrifics run together, if those people exist. And then now you have all, kinds of Beatles fans who, if they're aware of this may be something that they want to add, to their Beatles collection. So this is a book that I have an interest in, aside from the first appearance, and more based on the cover art.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you say about the homages, because there's been books that I've picked up that I would have never picked up before, but you recognize what it's paying tribute to, and it definitely has a demographic crossover appeal that, like one of the ones that had like the not the DC, but was it X-Men or X-Force had a bunch of movie poster homages, like
Yep.
Exorcist, and so every now and then you'll pick something up, or you could just be walking by it or thumbing through a short box or a long box and not know what it is, but you know what the homage is that it's portraying, and it just stops you, and you're like, oh, and then $3, whatever, it's worth picking up because
Like how we talked about Die Kitty Die last week.
right,
You may
the Scooby Doo,
right, you may not be into that series, but that cover smacks you as soon as you see it.
and those print runs are low, man. I Kitty Die in general, I think is under 2,000, like under 1,800. Um, so if there's
All
people
right,
that want them out
so
there,
on the hot 10 list this week with the Die Kitty Die #3 variant.
right? And that was that the Bewitched one or
Bewitched cover,
yeah,
correct. Shout out to Ben Stein, writer of the Hot 10 list on comicbookinvest.com.
yes, the most volatile list in the social media verse.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's one there's no like gray area. People are like, I love it or I hate it. But moving on, I'm gonna let you pronounce this one. But so Doctor Strange #10 came out this week, had a bunch of different covers, and it was also celebrating its 400th issue, right? So I joked in my
Right.
weekly picks for its 400th issue, Marvel is gonna have 400 covers. Um, so this one, I'll let you. I'd say
Right.
it's
So here, what?
funiculus, right?
Finiculus.
Yeah, sounds like Harry
So
Potter stuff.
right. So I haven't read this issue, but this is another one where I would say has more potential than some of the others. I think Doctor Strange is a character that Marvel wants to expand the universe. You have, I'll say, a hit movie series. I know it's not as popular as some of the other ones, but in contrast to the rest of the Hollywood landscape, Doctor Strange is a hit movie franchise. So I know that they're going to want to expand on that universe. They've brought in more of their A-list writers to work on Doctor Strange in the past.
It's so good when Donny Cates was writing those like 4 or 5 issues.
Right. It's kind of too bad for speculators. Don can't just write everything, but I definitely think that there's probably some staying power. I get almost the vibe of like a Mortal Hulk, where like if there's a first appearance in this series, I'm probably just going to pick it up and stock it away, because you just don't know. There's so much room and space for them to go with Doctor Strange.
Right. So out of all these covers, it seems none of them are super hot. In fact, even like they're selling, most of them are selling below ratio. There's not a lot of the higher incentive ratios listed. There's a couple, and of course they're listed for high. But the Nolan 1-in-25 seems the one that's selling the most, and it's selling just under ratio, between $15 to $20 from what I've seen. Everything else is selling round cover or just slightly above it.
And then we got in the chat. I'm gonna butcher your name, and I apologize, but Chassael Perez. He says that it's a must read, really interesting development, and that he needs to grab a few more copies. So there you go. There's somebody who's read it that's telling you that the contents, the guts of the book back up the first appearance heat. And what you were saying about the ratio variants, I noticed that, and you've got some high ratio variants here. And I think one thing to keep an eye on is some dealers who may get stuck with high ratio variants, and you may see some of those prices drop over time. So that may be something you want to, BOLO, be on the lookout. Save a couple of those eBay sellers selling those high ratio variants and just pay attention and see if those prices drop. See if you can make an offer and catch somebody, wanting to make a sale one day.
Yeah, because there's the Frank Miller one in there, and then the Casada sketch.
Right.
And they were like what 1 in 500 or I forget what they
Yeah,
were.
you wouldn't usually see that on a Doctor Strange issue 10. Being that it's the special, the anniversary, the 400th issue.
I'd be interested to see also. I know Comic-Con is not like the definitive print run, but it's the closest thing you have. But what the sales figure were with all these covers, I still don't think Doctor Strange probably sold. If I were to guess, I'd probably say 70, 80,000. But I don't know what the sales figures have been for Doctor Strange. But
Well, and I agree, and I think Marvel, you're going to get more accurate numbers from Comic-Con than say the independents, because Comic-Con is through, it's through Diamond,
yeah,
where such the bulk of Marvel sales come from. But I would tend to agree with you. I think that on the high ratio variants, you're going to see probably some of the lowest print runs of high ratio variants. I would think Marvel's done.
right. And then if it gets hot with not even the storyline, but if it gets hot with the next Doctor Strange movie coming out, you never know what freaking comics is crazy right now. What gets hot and what doesn't. And there's been books that have been getting crazy in the after secondary market, and I don't understand it. So I always say buy what you like or buy what you think is worth it, but just don't get pissed off if you get stuck. Just throw it in your box because most stuff is
Around.
yeah, it's cyclical anyways, which
Right.
Stutter's saying. So it might come back around again, and Donnie Cates will retcon something from this book, and people will be all over it.
Hey, between movies, TV, so many adaptations popping off, streaming services being created, Valiant entering the movie marketplace. There's so many different things happening in comics right now. All these different first look deals. I'm bullish on everything because if you can get it cheap, if it's an item that has room to grow, everything's getting it today. You're one, app key alert from a book shooting up 10 times its value.
Right. So that's not to knock Doctor Strange. I think it's more comics is niche, and then I think Doctor Strange can be niche. Um, Definitely different take with the whole mystic arts type. But moving on, the next confirmed first appearance you have on here was in Black Panther Deadpool #4, and that was the first appearance of Pantherpool.
Right, and this is one where I think I'd like to say speculators are evolving a little bit. This was the type of thing I think we would have jumped on a couple of years ago. First off, I think you have several first appearances this week, so that kind of diluted things a little bit. But these kind of combinations, I think, have run their course, especially with Deadpool. It's a cool thing. This is another trade that I will probably pick up and read when it's all finished. But a first appearance coming from, a mini series, it's probably not anything that's going to hold up long term. So I'm not surprised that we don't see real heat here. But it was definitely a first appearance. Some people talked about it. If I would have left it off the list, I would have definitely heard about it.
Right. And this one, the variant has actually been selling better than the regular cover.
Correct.
Few sales are about $10, but it's with those sales being at $10, it's still for sale at cover at Midtown. But looking at the two covers, I actually like the regular cover better with him sitting in the throne with the freaking Panthers, and the costume just looks pretty badass. But
I did too. I actually wonder if the sales of the variant aren't more like niche sales because of like the emoji thing. And there's certain people that really vibe to that like funny Deadpool type stuff, which is not my favorite, but
right. And then Last in our first appearance category, we had Mysteries of Love and Space #1. And that was the first appearance of Grotesqua.
Yeah. Not this one actually caught me off guard. I added this one at the end. Mysteries of Love and Space is a book I'm actually interested to read. It was one I had to pick up at the last second. All of the things that we were so positive about last week, Marvel doing, releasing these one-shots from these various genres that don't get kind of the focus but are coming back into popularity again. This is kind of to that vein. You have kind of sci-fi space love stories. It's like, I think it's 80 pages. It's $10 cover price.
Right.
So for the spec on it, here's what I would say. I mentioned earlier, DC pulls from everywhere. You're seeing first appearances from Walmart books, then becoming important parts of teams that they then are releasing, books with lots of marketing behind. Like I said, there are TV shows where Red Death is already being talked about on Flash. I don't think anything with DC is off limits. So the fact that it came from an 80-page giant from a series of stories doesn't necessarily preclude it from showing up somewhere else or getting hot. If it does get hot, here's what I like about it. Being that it's an 80-page giant and that it's a $10 cover price, you're not going to see the print run on this book that you're going to see with a lot of the Wednesday releases. Not a lot of stores. There's not a huge market for the $10 books. We've even seen Amazing Spider-Man and Deadpool struggle to sell at that $10 cover price. So this is a book that if this character pops off at all, this book would be probably shoot up in value and a tough one to get. Having said that, I think at the very least it would be an interesting read. I'm kind of getting into expanding the genres. I like the idea of expanding the genres of DC and Marvel. So I think it's going to.
The good thing about this is, it's one of those $9 80-page giants, but if it does get hot, there's just the one cover for it. There's not
Right.
A bunch of different covers, or at least DC's been doing good with just usually the B cover. But I like how it's one cover on this. I haven't picked it up. I might see if I can find it later for a little bit cheaper, but who knows? I might go. I haven't even made it to the comic store this week yet. I still have stuff from last week waiting for me. It's just work's been crazy. And of course I went to the Hilton Head vacation stuff. But before we were getting ready to move into the reader buzz, I just wanted to see a couple other people have come in to chat. We got Perry Comics, of course, the boy who had 7 talks comic books. He's also got a great YouTube channel. He's also got a great Instagram page. If you guys follow on Instagram, as I always say, if you guys do have a YouTube channel and you're in the live chat, say something, let people know that you have a YouTube channel. Also, make sure Discovery Bay Comics knows you have a YouTube channel so he can get you in his daily What's On Today videos. And real quick, one other thing which I wanted, last week, I kind of made light of, there's people doing some super chats, and I said, hey, I can get some handicap hot fries and Monster. I did buy those, but it wasn't with the super chat money. The super chat money and Patreon money from Patreon members all goes directly back into this channel. And what I've done recently is I was using this Rode remote is what I normally use for like my normal videos. So I just upgraded from this Rode mic to the actual Rode Video Plus Pro mic. This one actually is powered. It gives you better audio, so hopefully you may or may not be able to tell in my future videos coming up here. But thanks for people that do super chat, and thanks to my Patreon members, as it helps me buy better stuff and make better videos, hopefully. But if it suck, it's not because of the equipment, because I've been upgrading that. It's definitely all on me. But thanks, and I just want to say that to you guys. It's all appreciated, and I enjoy it. So I do a horrible job at that type stuff. But next we'll go ahead and come back off of this one, and we'll bring back up the BOLO list. Just to recap, where we've gone through the confirmed first appearances: Spawn, Captain America, Justice League, Old Lady Harley, Terrifics, Doctor Strange, Black Panther vs. Deadpool, Mystery of Love in Space. This is posted on Instagram. This is posted on G Plus, which of course is going away soon. Posted on comicbookinvest.com. So if this comes out, Jack's been doing a fantastic job the past few weeks of getting it out super early for East Coast guys that are trying to get to their LCS. But is there anywhere I'm missing that this is posted? I put it on the YouTube community in my channel, so if you're subscribed, it should show up in the feed as well.
Yeah, I think the only other place is on my Instagram. I don't know if you may have said that.
Right. AKA Mr. Bolo is his Instagram.
And you mentioned the Patreon. I haven't even talked to Brian about this, but one thing that I'm working on is trying to get the list possibly done Tuesday nights and be able to get it to like Simpleman's Comics Patreon subscribers. So I encourage everybody out there, if you haven't subscribed to Simpleman's Comics Patreon, you might want to go take a look at that. I'm going to be working with Brian. We want to get more BOLO content on there. So definitely, I want to encourage everybody to look out.
And Ben C., who's also the main proprietor, he also said that it's on the MeWe, the CBSI. So everyone knows that Google Plus is going away. My personal opinion is good riddance, and a lot of people in here might be like, what the hell is Google Plus anyways? But social media is going away, and if you are on CBSI's Google Plus page, we are actually moving over to MeWe, which is MEWE. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video as well. But let's move on now into the next topic, and that's going to be the Reader Buzz section, right?
Absolutely.
So, this is one I know you're a big fan of this title, and you had in here Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 35, right?
Right. So I actually messed this one up. This one I actually meant to also have in the variant buzz section and just somehow omitted it. Didn't realize it till after I noticed the list got published. Decided just to let it ride. Didn't want to mess with it. But yeah, I am very bullish on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I did not grow up with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It was a little bit behind me. I'm more G.I. Joe, Transformers. But I have 3 younger brothers. And one thing that having 3 younger brothers has afforded me, they range one is 4 years younger than me, one is 10 years younger than me, one is 13 years younger than me. So I have gotten to see what kids are interested in, throughout the next decade after I stopped playing with toys or watching cartoons. And I feel like now as a speculator, it gives me a lot of an advantage, because while I may not be into Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I know the fanatical fan base that exists for this property. And we see in the chat, Comics Mix Explained mentions Shattered Grid, and that's exactly what I was about to bring up. When Shattered Grid started the storyline, I started telling everybody, this is it. This is going to change Power Rangers, because we have a comics-driven story created by Dennis Hopeless, the Marvel writer, who created new characters. You have Lord Draken, an evil version of Tommy the Green Ranger, and it created so much heat. We got a new character, the Ranger Slayer. You had first appearances popping off, multiple printings of books. The whole story did well. I'm bullish on the entire run of Shattered Grid books. I think if you could pick them up for cover price, over time, they're just going to get more and more valuable. But this week, we have the origin of, the Dark Ranger. And we saw this character appear previously, but you're going to get the whole backstory. And there is a 1 in 25 virgin cover that has been heating up on eBay already. Brian, do you have the sales total on that?
So the variant, there's averaging around 20, but there's actually been a high sale of $41 so far.
Right. And so what you get with a lot of like the Boom variants is, I love Boom and IDW variants, and you're going to hear me talk later on about IDW with Star Trek. But people are used to selling them at a certain price. When books initially come out, you will always get a glutton of low sales. The key with those books is the print run on them is small. You have to wait out those low sales. Price them what you want to get for them, the high end of the market, that Tim Walker price. Put that price on that book and then leave it, and you wait till those books dry up and people can meet your price. And I think that that's what you're going to see with this book. You're seeing sales of this book. You're going to see copies dry up. And this is definitely one I would say is a long-term hold. If you can buy this book for ratio or less, I think it's a good buy.
Right, and I'm not a huge Power Ranger fan, but I like the cover. Of course, you can see I'm if you look at the variant picture on the far right that I put up there, you can see I'm on that cover in the bottom in the bottom right. Like not fitting into my costume that well. But yeah, you mentioned IDW books. There's a couple IDW books that as I often mentioned, I'm a big fan of Disney. I like to buy a lot of their 1 in 10 IDW Disney variants. And a lot of times when they first launched them, they actually had like Uncle Scrooge, Donald Duck, Mickey, and like Disney stories. They relaunched a bunch of those like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. Instead of 1 in 10s, they had 1 in 25s. So I picked a couple of those up um, for cheap. And that's when DCBS actually had cheap prices on their variants. I think I picked them up for like $10 a piece. A couple of them are like diamond anniversary covers for Disneyland. So it's just weird stuff that the Disney fan of me likes to buy. Plus, as we mentioned earlier, if you ever do want to get rid of them, there's that crossover appeal with other Disney fans because Disney people, I'll admit, man, we're freaking crazy. But
One of the biggest profit makers for speculators for a long time were those Scrooge and the Ducktales incentive. What is it? The design variants.
yeah,
And we were all making money off of them. And then it was one of those things where once everyone started posting about it, and then companies like DCBS started figuring out, that they were undercharging for pre-orders, and then they started overcharging. The market dried up on them, and you couldn't really make money anymore. But I will say this week I bought the Uncle Scrooge number 41 incentive variant. I bought 2 copies of that book because the cover art, it just struck me as classic Uncle Scrooge. And I thought, this is one that I'll grab. And like I said, with those variants, I don't mind buying them and holding them. And I'll tell you, I got it from TFAW, who charges on IDW variants below ratio. So I paid like 12 something, or no, I was like, for those were like 3 something.
wow.
And, for 1 in 10, they'll charge $3.19 for 1 in 10 variants a lot of times.
All right, just saying hello to people in chat. So we mentioned IDW. I just want to make sure people are aware that this is actually a Boom Studios book. So don't think that we were saying this is an IDW book,
Yeah.
but we just got in the topic of IDW. So the next one for Reader Buzz, which there's a big following for these type books. I'll let you go because you're kind of a fan of it as well. But the next one for Reader Buzz was Shadow Play #1, which is from Scout Comics, right?
Right. So you got Scout Comics, who's definitely had some heat coming off some of their #1s. And then another thing that's very interesting about this book is it's in the universe of Stabbity Bunny. So you have the benefit of already having an established fan base, and now an expanding universe for Scout. So that is something that I think gives it kind of, again, that duality of new series, new jumping on point, something people will be interested in, and then also a book that already has some people that will be checking it out coming from Stabbity Bunny.
Right. I want to give a big shout out to JB's. I'm not going to say the other part of the name because I'll butcher the crap out of it like I always do. But he's a super chat, $5. Definitely appreciate it. So going into Scout, a lot of times my weekly picks videos, I don't ever really have any Scout books or Valiant books. Rarely, I mean, I'll put some Dynamite and stuff in there, but and it's nothing against them. I just don't read them that much, so I don't get into those books. That's why I like having this type of live stream with you who are a Valiant fan or will read some of these books, because that way you can get your opinion and you can share it with the people there in the chat. Like I said, I definitely don't have anything against Scout or Valiant. I'm not an avid reader of those, so I don't highlight them in my weekly picks because, quite honestly, I don't know enough about them to put it in there or even speak on it. I know Stabbity Bunny took off and people were buying it like crazy and the different variants for it. I know a lot of their other. I have seen some great covers. I think I've even I've put some Valiant books in there just for the covers alone before in the weekly picks. But that's why I like having your opinion on here, because you'll dive into these books and you'll actually read it, and the people in the chat uh, will read them as well, because a lot of times they'll recommend the books. It's just, man, you get so overloaded with the amount of books that come out each week, and I'll be lucky if I could read 5 to 10 books a week. But
right. That's why I said that's why I moved to trades, because I had to switch it up. I was getting overwhelmed.
So that will wrap up the reader buzz section, correct?
Well, we have one more. We have
Okay.
Wired from Dark Horse.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Getting ahead of myself. I need a new eye exam. So is it Wired? I was gonna say it was Word, but
Be honest with you, I don't know.
I think
Anybody in the
Wired's
chat?
probably better. But this was a Dark Horse book, and it's now what I don't know is this original? This is original content from Dark Horse, correct? It's not like another IP that, because Dark Horse sometimes will take other IPs and then do new stories on them.
Right. No, this is an original story. I know very little about the story. It's a book I ordered off the pre-order because the story sounded interesting. To be honest with you, I think you spoke about this a couple weeks ago. I don't have luck with Dark Horse. I basically don't spec on Dark Horse. I was late to Black Hammer. Thank God I was still early enough. But Black Hammer kind of has been that exception. But Wired kind of has an interesting premise of kind of like an undead, undying detective. And I think that, it'll be an interesting read. I think if you're going to speculate, I like the cover B, the Jeff Lemire cover. I think Jeff Lemire has kind of become the Dark Horse guy. So I kind of like that. He's becoming, I'd say, almost the new Mignola for Dark Horse. But yeah, this is a book I'm not super familiar on yet, but definitely most people were kind of anticipating this. I would say this had maybe the most reader buzz of any book coming out this week.
Right. One thing I do like from from Dark Horse books is they do a lot of video game comics, right? So they'll do like Call of Duty. They have Aliens, which isn't even I wouldn't say a video game. I'm a movie first, but there's video games. Well, they have Mass Effect, Halo, God of War, which God of War, I enjoyed the comics, but the game's a lot better. But I believe you're right. Like with the Jeff Lemire covers, he's even written a couple great books for him. So I'll be interested to see how this does. I think I'm gonna pick it up. I'll probably, to be honest though, Jeff Lemire's art's an acquired taste. Some of his covers I like, some of it I don't. To me, for this one, I'd like the regular cover better actually. But I definitely want to pick the book up and read it. If not, read it digitally online or something. But anyone else in the chat, are they a big Dark Horse fan? Are there other Dark Horse books that you guys like? Did they do I'm trying to think of, can't think of the name now. It was a horror comic, but of course I'll think about it later and just blurt it out. Probably when you're in the middle of talking. But
Well, we got Walt Parrish in the chat says Wired is like a Warren Ellis book with a Constantine, Wolverine, Hellboy type detective. So I think that's that kind of one line solicitation that will certainly pique a lot of people's interest.
Yeah, and then Pope Cerebus also put in there Rebels. Rebels was a good one. That was is that Brian Wood? Not this Brian Wood, but was that Brian Wood that wrote Rebels? I forget if it was him or Brian K. Vaughan, but I think it was Brian Wood that wrote that. But we wrapped up Reader Buzz, and then I'll bring the BOLO list back up here real quick. Next, we're going to go into Variant Buzz here. So this is probably one of the most talked about books this week. And you got to be fickle about the verbiage you use when you talk about it, because it first came out as recalled, which I guess you could say it was, but it wasn't. I would almost just say it's an error book that Diamond said, sell it, but we're going to replace copies with, right?
Correct. So on this book, I definitely want to shout out one of our partners, Mill Geek Comics, at Mill Geek Comics on Instagram, Mr. Russ Bright, the comic sensei who does the Hot 10 videos with Comic Tom 101 for our CBSI, as well as the True First videos, which is another amazing article on comicbookinvest.com. That's from Topher. But Russ has done a really great job communicating to the comic community these diamond notices. He's kind of been the first one to kind of break a lot of this news. So he was real quick to hit me up, tagged Comic Book Invest, tagged myself, and let us know that, like, look, this is something that we need to warn the community about, because while people are going crazy, and get your money, if you can get this book, flip this book, absolutely. But it's something to look at with this book because it's not a true recall. Dealers were not told to send this book back. It was supposed, the cover C, the black and white, which you have up on the screen, was supposed to be printed with all black and white pages on the inside, and some colored pages were printed in the final printing. So Diamond let everyone know, look, we're going to reprint them and ship them to you. So there will be 2 copies. I do agree with some speculators' assessment that the error copies long term may have some value, because it's one of those kind of niche things, but it raises so many questions, because will there be more of the errors than the fixed version, or will there be more of the fixed than the errors? Which one is truly going to be rarer? And the prices that the book is going for in the market right now are insane, and they just don't reflect the real situation. But this is what happens in comics. Every week, something is going to get hot. And as soon as that term recalled came out, I think people jumped on that term.
Right.
And we've seen success with recalled comics. There's so many new speculators who are just coming into the game in the last couple of years or the last couple of months. And if you've been watching the Hot 10 list, if you've been watching or reading comicbookinvest.com and Adam Lebednick's Wednesday One, or any of these, a lot of times we talk about these error comics and these recalled comics, and they tend to spike in value. So I think there was a lot of anticipation, and this was one of those, it kind of spoke itself into fruition. I agree with Russ that long term, this is a dangerous investment. At current prices, it's crazy. I'll just say that.
So it's currently selling for like $25, $30 on the
Right.
average. But to go along with that, long term, yes, but damn well, years down the road, 5, 10 years, not that even long, it's going to be one of those things, whether it's worth something or not. It's going to be one of those things when people see this sitting in a box, they're going to want to take it out and look to see, is it the new cover or the error cover? I mean, it might be worthless, but people are going to do it because that's what people enjoy doing. They're like, ooh, the little fun fact, did you know that this was actually, and it has these, because people love nostalgia. I'm guilty of it. I love nostalgia too, because this is one of those books where you're going to pull it back down the road and see it in a box and go, oh man, I wonder if that one is the reprint or the new print or the one that came out that had the error. Kind of like Billy Ripken cards, but
Right. And what one I think about is the it was recalled, but the Wolverine issue where you had the racial slur, and just looking at the cover, you can't tell. You got to go into that book and look and actually find the word. So I think that it's the same kind of way that it's, again, as we talk about niche collectors, Spawn collectors are a small but rabid and loyal group of fans. So it'll be interesting to see what the long-term kind of prognosis on it is. But I think that in the next couple of weeks, we'll see the book come down to $10 to $15.
right, and I think that's about where it's. I would say, yeah, between. I'm thinking 8 to 12, 10 to 15, but that seems about right. Just it also depends how many of them are out there. How many cover C's were printed, right? But then how
Right.
many Spawn fans? So it's hard to tell what. I don't have a crystal ball for comics or super rich like Biff with his sports almanac. But so the next one was the Wonder Woman 63 Shirorama variant, right? This is a great
Correct.
cover, and I didn't pay attention to it in previews, so I didn't notice it until last Wednesday when the new comics coming out this week hit, and uh, I think it's great every now and then to get that shake up from the normal cover B artist, which was Friesen, but which seems like there's a couple cover Bs coming out that aren't Friesen. I don't know. I haven't checked. His like she's not off the book, right? Probably just hiatus. But um, what are your thoughts on this book?
I like this one, and for the exact reasons you said, I think it's a difference. It shakes it up. But I will also tell and make it a little personal. This got me because when I started looking at solicitations, I'm a big pre-orderer. In my area, some of the LCSs, they're not real speculator friendly. It's very difficult to buy multiple copies. So I have had to just be one of those people who does a lot of pre-ordering online. And when you're going to do that to get the prices that you want to get, it's all about, being in advance. And like you spoke about yourself, I didn't see this cover art. The cover art's gorgeous. It's If you've been doing this long enough, you can kind of see a cover and tell it's going to be popular with the masses. And I could tell as soon as I saw this cover, but I didn't see this cover until a couple weeks ago. So it wasn't on my initial pre-orders. I had to scramble to try to get a few copies of this for sure. But I think that it will have some staying power because it's a knockout cover. It's part of, like we said, the beautiful DC cover Bs, just a clean cover. And I think it's popular for those reasons you said. It's a nice cover, and then it's just different. I love what Friesen has been doing with Wonder Woman, but I think that we've seen that every cover run its course at some point, and you got to switch it up. Otherwise, the redundancy starts to kill it, the way we've seen with Art Germ and Matina to some extent on a few books. So I think that this is a good thing.
I also like this cover because it almost reminds me of like maybe like a sketch card you would get, right? I like how
Right.
it's kind of, I wouldn't say simple, but I like how it's, the white with the white skin with and then her lasso pops, her kicking up the ground. I mean, there's some details in there that are really great, and it's going. What did we say it's selling for? $8 to
It's like
$10 on average with a high sale of 15. So there's been people that sets of 5, sets of 3, but it's a great cover. It's one I'd like to have and pick up, but um, who knows what it'll do down the line. Just looking in the chat real quick. One thing I noticed about the chat, man, their emojis are horrible. It's like a freaking top of a Twinkie with a smile or something. But um, just looking through here. Oh, who was it who said? I gotta find out who said. Um, Comic Smiths Explained said Friesen did a sick Metallica poster recently, so I'm definitely gonna want to look that up because I haven't seen it.
I saw that on Instagram. It's very cool.
Oh yeah. So I will say she's like one of the nicest people. Talked to her, met her at Baltimore Comic Con, and really down to earth, really humble, but great art as well, and not bad to look at. But I think we even had a comic book invest member propose to her there. But you got a sketch instead.
And was a sketch.
Yeah. So the next one on the variant buzz list was the Flash 63, the Chaikin variant, right?
Correct.
And I like this one because it was kind of a throwback looking cover. I liked it. It was a lot of the cover Bs and the new variants you see now is you see a big blowout, or I don't even know what you'd say, but a lot of them now are these digital artists, your Art Germs, your Derek Chews. So it's nice to see stuff like this that comes out and it kind of does a throwback to the older style covers. It's not selling for super hot, but I think it's a great cover. And it's different. And to be honest, if you notice since Rebirth, a Flash issue come out, it's in my weekly picks because this is one of the best titles coming since the Rebirth launch, I think.
I agree. Definitely. And I think that this one, the reasons I like it are very similar to what we just talked about with the Wonder Woman. It's a different, you get a little variance from some of the other stuff. I like that it's a cover B, but unlike most of the other near versions, you actually see the flash across the top. I think it's a classic flash cover with the classic rogues. And I think the way we've talked about this the last couple of weeks, I don't think we're ever going to stop talking about it. DC cover Bs, they're cheap. There are a lot of them that don't get heat, that aren't jumping up to $15. People don't pay attention to. If you see this one at your LCS, I would grab it for cover price, because I definitely think it's a book that all it needs to do is dry up, have one person talk about it on social media, and everybody will run to grab it. It's probably a book people just didn't really see, and it hasn't had its day in the sun yet. But
Right.
it's definitely a book I like, and I will have a few copies to hold on to.
So there's a couple things I noticed now. I think I didn't notice it before. They may have been doing it, but DC's now actually in previews is actually soliciting their cover B cover art, where before it would just say like variant and you wouldn't really see the cover art. So me, when Rebirth first launched and they had a lot of these cover Bs, and it was even before they went like this the semi-virgin variant, but the cover Bs I noticed, especially around uh, Maryland, DC metro area, a lot of the LCSs that I would go to, they weren't ordering a lot of the cover Bs. They were heavily ordering on the cover As, even though they're regular price. So if I find like the early Rebirth runs or early launch of the Rebirth series and cover Bs, they don't hold that high of a price, I pick some up just because I think there's less of them out there. If any of them do get hot, I mean, what is it, a $3 risk?
Right, low buy-in.
Yeah.
The low buy-in price is what makes these so attractive, and makes them kind of an easy play. I totally agree.
So I'd mentioned about the bust out of digital artists right now. That doesn't mean I don't like them, because I definitely pre-ordered me the Derek Chew Harley. I pre-ordered from Slabbed Heroes. He was running $30 special on guaranteed 9/8 for that. So I got me one of those coming. And speaking of digital art, this was one, Batgirl 31. I've been kind of down on a lot of the art drum covers lately, but this is one, as soon as it was put out there and saw the art for it, it reminded me of those was it the Justice prints he did a while back? And
I, that's a real good comparison. I agree with that. I hadn't thought about that till you just said that.
so when I saw that, and then I have the Art Germ Batgirl sideshow statue premium format, I was like, dude, I pre-ordered this in a 9/8 as well. This is one of the few Art Germ covers that I've seen lately that is just like, dude, I love that cover. But that's not to say it'll be super hot. I mean, I think there's some saturation and some fatigue on Art Germ out there, of course, which we've talked about before. But this
Right.
is just a personal buy for me. So I really like the cover, and like I said, it's right now it's selling average of cover price.
And I totally agree with you. This is a victim of the saturation of art germ. And I think that people, they tend to be kind of habitual when it comes to speculating. Once you get off of something, it's hard to get back on it. I think people missed out on this book. I think that this book is going to be a classic Batgirl variant. It's got that look. I totally agree. I think the Justice comparison is spot on. I think this is Art Germ at his best. I do agree that everyone's kind of OD'd on Art Germ for the moment, but as we said, everything will come back around when, say, that Batgirl movie's coming out, or something of that nature, and people are back looking at Batgirl variants. If this thing is dried up at cover price, it could spike quickly. So this is another one where no, you're not gonna see immediate gains, but take some of your Spawn error profits and put it into a couple copies of these, stick them in a box, and forget about them. And I think you'll be glad you did.
Right. And so the next issue of this has got, I think it's got a Derek Chew variant, right, which is similar to the Harley Derek Chew that's coming out next week. I'm tempted yet or not. That's one of the covers where I'm like, do I want to pre-order? You can get it 9/8, guarantee 9/8 cheap. I think it's like $40, but I don't know.
Right, and that's one of those things. And I want everyone, if I could take a minute and really think about what Brian just said. When everyone's on that Harley book next week, and they will be all over that Harley book, he pre-ordered that book for $30 from Slabbed Heroes. So I want to send a big shout out to our sponsor because there's nobody that can match those prices on the market. So we're not just sitting here shilling for somebody. This is a relationship we built with them because we like what they're doing.
Right.
And so I definitely advocate to people to go check them out. We talk about pre-ordering being the key. They do a lot of books for 30, a lot of books for 60, but either way, your buy-in is cheap. You don't have to mess with trying to get the 9.8, and you're getting a guaranteed 9.8 of a book that could heat up on release date, and you're already sitting with a pre-ordered copy.
Right. Now, yeah, don't make any false assumptions. Yeah, that cover, people like it, but people were aware of it before final order cutoff, so don't think that it's going to be super hard to find by any means, because there's a lot of people that saw it and got it. So there's going to be a lot of copies out there. I got it just because I thought the cover was cool, and you can't beat $30 for 9.8 at the time. Now, it's standard grading 8 to 10 weeks, but I'm not trying to flip it, sell it, because I'm aware that there's going to be a lot of copies out there. It's for my collection, so I'll spend $30 and then wait the 10 weeks or whatever for me to get it. Submitting the graded, getting shipped back and everything, but
especially since, like we said, most of these DC cover Bs, these are long-term holds. Yeah. So 8 to 10 weeks is nothing, in the grand scheme of it.
So moving on, next one after Batgirl number 31, we had this was a weird book. That was a Journey into Unknown Worlds number 1. We just have the variants. We don't have the regular cover up here. I saw it. I immediately liked the Super Log variant, which is on the left. But to be honest, I didn't know much about the book. But I did like the cover for that Super Log variant. It was Super Log, and I forget who did the cover C.
I think that was Larraz, was it?
Yeah, I got it coming. 1 second.
But this is similar to the books that released last week. This is in celebration of Marvel's 80th anniversary doing sci-fi. So this is similar to where you saw the horror anthology last week, The War. Now you're getting a sci-fi story. It didn't really have reader buzz. Cover A's didn't really sell out anywhere. But people jumped on that Super Log variant. I agree. I don't know what it is about that cover, but it just sticks out. It definitely appealed to me. It was one that when I was looking at, I immediately said, I could see that heating up.
Yeah, because it's got a science fiction book and has that like old school science fiction art style type to it.
Right, right. It kind of reminds me of like a 70s sci-fi movie poster or 60s sci-fi.
Well, the movie's just super cheesy, but
right. So again, we talk about crossover appeal. I think that book has crossover appeal. So that's the cover that interests me. The cover C sold out though as well, and I think it's kind of similar to what we saw last week, where
it's Javier Guerra on Young Guns is the cover C.
There you go. Yeah, so the Young Guns variants, you get the closest thing Marvel's got, other than like the Battle Lines variants they did, to doing like the DC cover B versions. So when a book heats up a little bit, you tend to see that cover sell out. So I'm not surprised about that. But I think long term, if there's ever a cover that gets any sort of like cover heat, it would be that cover B.
Right. So if anyone in the chat, if they've read this book, let me know what you think, because I'm going to probably end up reading it, but it's not on my priority list because I'm way behind on books as it is. But next up in the variant chat you got on here, I noticed there's the wrong issue number, by the way, but
yeah, you weren't the only one.
In Y Weekly Picks, it's like this is one of the ones where I liked all 3 covers. They've been doing a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy regular price variants and the Conan vs. Marvel Villains variants. They've all been like, I don't like buying variants that don't have the cover has nothing really to do with the book. But this one here, the X-Force number 2, the Jerome Pena Conan variant, it's freaking awesome. Like, I don't even care that it doesn't have much to do with the X-Force team, but Jerome Pena's art, if you're a fan of him, this is one book, and it's super low buy-in, right? $3.99 or whatever the cover price is for it.
Right, and this is one you actually put on my radar last week. I kind of tend to tune out, and I think retailers do too, a lot of these monthly variant programs where you start looking at 10, 20 books being released with the same variant theme. That was cool when they first started doing that, Marvel and DC, but that's run its course. And, you start kind of watering down the market when you do that. And then I think speculators and collectors, specifically collectors, I think agree with what you just said, that they don't have an interest in books where you're not, the title of the book isn't what you're seeing depicted on the cover. So I agree with that. Having said that, I agree with what you said. The cover art's amazing on this book. But when you mentioned that book, I went looking for it and struggled to find cover price copies without going to eBay.
Right.
I struggled to find a retailer who had multiple copies where I could pre-order 5 or 6. And this was a week ago. So I started to realize that, this is an under-ordered book. And if, Conan continues to get hot and popular with a new crowd, a new fan base, as well as the existing fan base, this could be a book that gets sneaky pricey.
Right, and aren't they bringing them into Marvel main continuity and that Avengers, was it No Road Home or no coming up with him and Scarlet Witch but
yeah, and then that could open up doors for anything.
I like to use my own imagination, and since I'm a Master of the Universe, I'd just say Conan's fighting Skeletor on the cover. But
what did you say last week? Dark Side?
Yeah, what was that? Lyrax or
Yeah.
the cover that I was like, is that his first appearance? And my comic noob ass was like, no, it was like Fantastic Four in 1970 something. But
yeah,
yeah, I think it's a great cover, and I don't think it'll be super hot, but they're selling on average for $9. So I mean, that's something there within a day, right? So the next one, I wasn't really aware of this until I looked at your list, and that was the variant buzz for the Star Trek Q conflict, the 1 in 25 Woodward variant, right?
Correct. This is my pick of the week, without a doubt.
Yeah, because if you're a Star Trek fan, whether you're Next Generation or if you're Classic, I mean, you got both of them there. I don't know if Paul Wiederhold, he picked this book up, but he would definitely be the type of person that would, because he's a huge Star Trek nerd. But I'm more Star Wars than Star Trek. But it is a great cover. I don't read the Star Trek books, but I do like the cover on this. And before you get into it, it's average and about ratio at $25, but there has been a high sale of $40, and that's recently, like within the last 24 hours.
Right, even more directly, the most recent sale is $40 and $4 shipping.
Right.
So Star Trek is increasing again in popularity quietly, largely due to, I think, the new TV show Discovery bringing a whole new audience in. It's a big departure from typical Star Trek stuff, although the second season's moving more in a traditional direction. But Star Trek, if you've been, like I said, I'm a big IDW guy. So if you've been paying attention to IDW sales of recent releases, a lot of these Star Trek miniseries, when they come out, that issue number 1 variant, whatever the high ratio variants are money. They are hitting good prices. If you look at, I can't remember the name of the series. They just had a series where the issue number 1, there was a 1 in 100, but it was one of those, that's 1 in 100 for the first 4 issues. So it's not really 1 in 100, it's more like 1 in 25. And then there was another 1 in 25 that just had the Enterprise on it, and that book was selling for as high as $70. I'm telling you, I think this Q Conflict number 1 book could hit $100. Because these books don't get ordered heavily by stores. How many stores do you think are out there ordering 25 copies of Star Wars Q Conflict? And if they are ordering 25 copies, they're probably only ordering 25 copies. So they're not getting multiple copies of the variant. So when I see a variant like this that I'm real bullish on, one of my biggest struggles is, how do I acquire multiple copies? So this was a book that I had to go to several different sources to try to get copies. But when you look on eBay right now, there are only 7 listings for the variant, none of them for this 1 in 25, only the 1 in 10. So if I was to list a copy, I haven't gotten my copies in yet, but if I was to list a copy, I'm going to list it higher than the previous sale of $40 and $4 shipping because there's absolutely no competition. So that's how prices end up escalating, and that's what I like about the IDW game, is how many Marvel books are going to get released, and then just a day later, they're gone. It's completely dry. And yeah, the Star Trek fan base is smaller than, X-Men or Spider-Man, but it's rabid. And I'm just like you. I'm a Star Wars fan. I don't like Star Trek. I've never really gotten into it. I grew up with a father who was into Star Trek, but it wasn't really my type of thing. So it's just one of those things where I respect the fan base. And I've had luck with these types of books. So a major kind of pro tip of BOLO to everybody watching is, pay attention to these, Star Trek type releases, these releases where you have these rabid fan bases. And, Transformers is about to release a new #1, but everybody will be paying attention to it. But when they release mini-series or limited series, those #1s, the high ratio variants, if they do one above 1 in 10, jump all over that. Especially in a case like this, like you said, where you have tie-in for both shows and cover art that's actually appealing. So I'm real bullish on this book. I think that the sky's the limit with this one.
And it's got that old lady who played the nun on Sound of Music in the background. But yeah, it's sold out at Midtown. I haven't checked other places. I think most of the places that would have had a good chance of getting that are those bigger comic sites, because they take the risk more to order 25 copies or more. But yeah, so I wouldn't known about it because, like I said, I'm not big into Star Trek, and I've been bullish on what I buy lately. But um, it's definitely one, like, for all the reasons that you said. That covers up the variant buzz. The only thing left now is your long term play. Is there, before we get into that, is there anything you wanted to announce? We can take a look at the live chat, answer any questions from the live chat as well.
Well, I do want to say I agree with Adam Lebednick's comment that the 1 in 10 cover, I think, is a better looking cover on the Q Conflict. I like the 1 in 10 variant as well. I just think that the key with the IDW variants is the market drying up, and obviously 125s are going to dry up quicker. But that does not mean that I don't think the 1 in 10 is a good play. As a matter of fact, a lot of times you can pick up those 1 in 10s. Like I said, TFAW will sell them for $3 and change. You can pick them up right now on eBay for a lot of them for like $8 and $9 shipped. So I definitely think there's room long term in that 1 in 10.
I'll bring the 1 in 10 here on the screen real quick.
Yeah. And I'll go ahead while he's doing that. I'll go ahead and talk about, we've got the Blossom 666 Robert Hack variant. This is the book that we talked about on the BOLO list last week. It also appeared in comicbookinvest.com's Hot 10 Comics list. So this is currently a Hot 10 book. And we are going to give it away this week to one person who can answer the trivia question in the chat. And I'm going to go ahead and ask that question right now. This story stars Jason and Cheryl Blossom from the Archie Afterlife with Archie universe. In what issue of Afterlife with Archie did Cheryl kill Jason? She reappears from the woods bloody, and there is no Jason. What issue is that? And the first person.
Do you want to wait for that, or do you want to go into your long-term spec while we're doing that as well?
Yeah. We'll give people some time.
So, for your long-term spec play, bring it up here. Had the Spawn 293 cover A, right? Which would be the regular cover on the far left in the picture on the screen.
Correct. So my choice for this book stems from two major reasons. Number one, because of the Mattina cover art. As a Spawn fan, the Mattina cover art's been some of the most exciting stuff that's been happening in Spawn. It's been cool to see somebody kind of roots for Spawn to do well. It's been cool to see the top artist in the game jump on the Spawn title. 293 is a book, like as we said, first appearance, but it's also a book that's going to be attainable because it's getting overlooked because of the whole controversy with cover C. And I put in there for my long-term spec play for Spawn 293 cover A, but really any Mattina Spawn. And this history with Mattina Spawn dates back to Spawn 280. I believe it was Scott's Collectibles who did, or it was a Fan Expo, might have been Fan Expo, who did the Spawn 280 Mattina variant for a convention, numbered to 666. That book became a Hot 10 book. It became a $100 book. To this day, you can't buy that book for less than $100. And I think it's what really kicked off the relationship between Todd McFarlane and Francesco Mattina. Now, I know that Mattina right now is filled with a lot of controversy. But one thing, knock on wood, that I want you to pay attention to is you haven't seen his Spawn work brought up in any of that controversy. You've seen a lot of it from Marvel and DC and the deadlines that he's had to hit with that. But he has collaborated on these pieces with Todd McFarlane. And I think that his Spawn work may be kind of controversy proof, because even if he was to lose his job with DC, I think that he would probably retain his work with Spawn. I think Todd has been really smart to partner with Francesco Mattina here, because it's really driven sales for Spawn, which really haven't been anything major for several years. 283 was his first issue that Mattina did a regular cover for. It was originally not solicited. It got announced at the last second and went kind of through the roof, was a $20 book. Then Spawn 284 got announced with a Mattina cover. They pushed back the FOC. It was a big disaster, and it turned a lot of speculators off. But why that's important is because once they got turned off, they stopped paying attention. And once they stopped paying attention, you've seen print runs drop steadily. But there's been tons of great Spawn covers that Mattina's done. And I think as we get ready for a Spawn movie to release, and more new modern collectors are looking for Spawn books beyond issue 1, beyond issue 3, beyond issue 9, and some of these key issues, I think this Mattina run is going to become classic. And I think each of these books is probably a $10 to $15 book in the long term if Spawn does what I believe it can do. And a lot of these books have been available on clearance sales and on clearance websites for as low as $1. I've seen Midtown list a lot of this run, and TFAW during their Christmas and clearance sales. So it's something to keep an eye on for these newer issues that are getting left on these sites and when you're at conventions. But I'm real bullish on the long-term value on this Mattina run. I think it's the best thing that's happened in Spawn comics in at least 100 issues. And I think at the buy-in rate, at the $3 buy-in rate, it's a safe play.
Right. Oh, we got to find, anyone answer your question?
Yes, actually, we did get a quick answer. I think it was my man Rand. Trying to look up in the chat.
Yeah, I'm scrolling up too.
Yeah, I also want to point out Ben C commented that I was right and wrong at the same time. It was by Scott's Collectibles for Fan Expo, so it's both. But it was a major hit. If you haven't seen that cover, it's worth a Google. Go check that out.
I think I got it. Hold on. I even have it out. Is it this one? I think, right? The red and white and...
No, that's the second one. That's the second.
This was one of my favorites. That was the Canada Fan Expo.
Yeah. And that's another one that's got huge demand. People are all over.
Oh, but you're talking about that Virgin one, right?
Right. No, I think it was I think they did a trade dress on it.
Okay.
It might have had a version, but yeah, here we go. The answer was To the Archie question, I'm trying to find the first answer. I see somebody answered it, but the answer was issue 7.
First one to get. I see Walt Parrish.
Parrish, my fault. Yeah, Walt
Yeah,
Parrish.
the Walt Parrish got it. So, you want to do like last time? If
Yeah,
email me and I'll get you the address. So Walt Parrish, if
sound.
you email me at simplemanscomics@gmail.com, email me your address, and then I'll make sure Jack gets it, and we'll get that book out to you. Um,
And then
so
one other thing I want to do the giveaway for this week, the Spawn giveaway. What I want you to do is comment in the comments once this video is posted, not in the chat, in the actual comments. What is your favorite book from the Matina Spawn run? If you comment that what your favorite book is, that will get you entered one time. And then if you repost Brian's post at Simpleman's Comics on Instagram and repost his post for this live stream, you will get another entry. So you can get a maximum of 2 entries, and I will put them into random.org, pick one, and I will send somebody a Matina Bolo box.
awesome. So yeah, the video usually goes live about an hour after the live stream. Well, goes live, gets posted to the channel about an hour after the live stream. And a couple other things before I go is there's a couple books that weren't on the BOLO list that I thought were pretty cool. Talking about homage covers earlier, there was the indie from, what is it, Ahoy Comics, I think, the Edgar Allan Poe Snifter of Terror #4. It had that
Yeah.
Jaws homage. I liked it better without before the trade dress was added, but I still thought it was a great cover. And then Age of X-Men Alpha had that Perez Hidden Gem variant, which was like classic Perez art to me. It had like the multiple characters on it, and not that I think Age of X-Men's that great of a book, but I did like that cover. And it's regular priced, at least on a lot of the websites. I'm not sure which. I'm not an LCS, so I don't know always know which ones are qualified for their weird ordering type stuff they have to do. But I thought that was a cool cover as well. See if
Yeah, I totally agree on that one.
And Volition #4 came out this week, which I thought was a good book. But nothing like Bolo. Just some of my favorites that I've been liking lately. So with that being said, oh, there's one other thing also I wanted to get your take on. We've talked about like store exclusives a lot. One book that's definitely coming out that's going to have a lot of regular covers and then a lot of store exclusives is going to be, of course, Detective 1000, right?
Right.
I do know I've seen a lot of store variants. Some I like, some I don't like. My favorites right now probably would be Karis Comics has the Warren Louw Louw. He's got the what is it? The Poison Ivy. He's got like the 3 characters, and then they just also released the Sideways cover that has all 3 of them on the same cover as well. Those were great covers. I normally shy away from a lot of their store variants just because you get lost in the wash. But those KRS covers are probably some of my favorites right now for the Detective 1000.
Right. I think there's a lot of buzz for the Art Germ collectible store variant that's going to be coming out.
I like his the Golden Age one that he has.
Right. That's the one that I think is going to be like, if you were going to say which one is the one, I think that one would probably be the one. As far as like cover art that strikes me, I really like the Lee Bermejo Midtown Comics one, but I think you'll probably see one of the bigger print runs of a store variant with that one. That's one. Just wait. Just wait, and that book will be on some 70% off sale at Midtown at some point. But yeah, I think DC, specifically DC retailer variants, have never proven to be profitable when they're seen coming. No one saw Batman Who Laughs necessarily coming originally, but I don't foresee a lot of these issues being good. If you see some cover art you like, by all means buy from your favorite retailer, buy from somebody you trust. But I don't foresee a lot of profit in Detective Comics 1000. Matter of fact, I think it's a money trap. It reminds me a lot of Batman 50.
Yeah, I remember one book that did get hot stored. Well, Batman #1 Rebirth came out. KRS had that Tyler Kirkham cover that had like Batman and Harley and Poison Ivy, and that one shot up, I think at one time close to like 50, $60. I bought 3 just because I really like the cover, but once they hit that price, I sold off like all but one and kept one. Yeah, it's weird. Like, because of stuff like that, though, the people that miss out anytime a new variant comes out, an store exclusive, they think it's gonna follow the same trend and
Right.
think it will repeat itself, which it doesn't always do so. But yeah, there's a couple other store variants. I know, like Art Germ has one for ASM coming out on his own Art Germ website. Was it the Gwen Stacy variant he's got that's coming out? So I never include store variants in my weekly picks because I always go straight off what's coming from the publisher. With that being said, I'll let you get the last word. Also, like I said, we're going to reach out to Nick from Slabbed Heroes, and he's going to be on one of these live streams here coming up. He's eager to come on, wants to talk about his site. He does pressing services as well, so we're going to have him on. He said he's going to be donating some slabs for giveaways, so really excited about that as well. After that, Walt, yes, it's simplemanscomics@gmail.com. That's correct. And then you get the last word, Jack.
Just want to thank everybody for checking us out. Just want to remind everybody, I saw in the chat, Andy from Indie Spotlight series, he wanted to let everybody know he's got less than 10 copies left of Ogre #3, the Indie Spotlight series variant, the very first CBSI column to get its own variant. It's available at batcomicshop.com, and I definitely suggest if anybody's into that series, check that out. There's, like I said, less than 10 copies available left. So I do store variants. There's value in them. It's all about being safe and going with somebody you trust.
What was the name of Andy's website again?
It's Bat Comic Shop, BAT Comic Shop.com.
Well, I always do that, but I'll get the last word. I was gonna say, hey guys, thanks for joining the chat. I think each week the conversation in the chat, the show, we're starting to get the show dialed in a little bit better, a little bit less technical difficulties, so we're getting better there. As always, definitely feel free to comment any suggestions, stuff you want us to cover, because we like talking to ourselves, but we definitely love the conversation in the chat. Try to get better at paying more attention to the chat, bringing stuff into the show. But from the bottom of my heart, really, really thank you guys for joining this chat, and always open to suggestions and constructive criticism. But now, Jack, you will get the last word.
Yeah, and last thing I just want to say, reiterate what you said. I just want to thank everybody. The chat was very lively tonight. I think we're building some serious momentum in the chat, and you guys add to the show with the chat. So I really want to appreciate it. Want to say shout out to everybody who was being real active in the chat. Thank you. All
right, and with that, so next Thursday we're going to be live. The following week, which is I believe Valentine's Day, I don't know if we're going to do a stream on Valentine's Day because I'm not looking forward to getting divorced right now. So we'll work something out and see if we might do one Wednesday that day, or we'll
let us know, guys, how you felt about the Wednesday deal. You know, if we moved it to a Wednesday when we need to, is everybody cool with that? But we'll make adjustments where needed.
Definitely. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week.